Gracias. Gracias. Hola. I must be sure to make sure everyone knows Will Smith is not coming. This whole idea, spiritual genetics, what does that mean? Spiritual genetics, that which makes you, you, that has nothing to do with anatomy, biology, chemistry, or physics. The part of you that cannot be analyzed, quantified, nor measured. That of you that is not composed of DNA, blood type, or pigmentation. The part of you that is beyond the scope, reach, or understanding of science, medicine, or technology. What is that? That's your spirit. The technology to measure that does not exist. It is so, but there is nothing a scientist can place under a microscope that will tell her why you became who you are as a man or a woman. That is totally spiritual. So that became one of the most important decisions and promises I had ever made in my life. Becoming a parent did that for me. I've been asked many, many times, why didn't you give the baby to your mother? Well, that was not my mother's baby. That was my baby. And I was being true to my spiritual genetics and that promise I made to myself as a 5-year-old boy. When I grow up, become a man and have children, my children are going to know who their father is. I had to make a plan. For a year, my son and I either slept in homeless shelters, train stations, bus terminals, hotel lobbies, outside of the park in San Francisco if the weather permitted. When there was no place else to go, there was a bathroom at a train station in Oakland, California. And it worked for us for 2 reasons. It was clean and you could lock the door. In the film, you'll recall Will and his son playing this game about being cavemen. We need to find a cave, someplace to spend the night. I had a game I played with my son. The game was real simple. The game was called Shh. And that meant that no matter what anybody said on the other side of that door, no matter how hard they pound on the door, we're not here. We're invisible. We lived like that for a year. It was there in that train station bathroom that I had to make some very, very important decisions. There was a highly polished piece of sheet metal over the sink. And every day I had to wash my son up. I had to ask myself some very important questions. Why did this happen? Why did that happen? What's going to happen next? Probably the most brutal question that I had to ask myself every day: how did I get here? The answer was, I drove here. I had something to do with the situations and circumstances that had become my life. I drove here. There was something very empowering about that, something very liberating about it, because I knew, whoa, well, if I drove here, then I can drive out of here. You can't change something until you own it. I drove here. And I knew at that moment I had to make a plan. People talk to me about hope all the time. Hope is a beautiful thing, but it will never be enough. You got to have a plan. And your plan has got to have what I call the C5 complex. Your plan has got to be clear, concise, compelling, consistent, and committed. You've got to have a plan. And when you're talking about doing something that you are truly passionate about, there is no plan B. 3 examples. Michael Jordan did not win 6 NBA championships with the Chicago Bulls because he was committed to plan B. That was plan A. Oprah Winfrey did not become the queen of all media because she was committed to plan B. That was plan A. Whatever your political views are, Barack Obama is not sitting in the White House because he was committed to Plan B. That was Plan A. Somebody in here needs to write this down. Plan B sucks. If it was any good, it'd be Plan A. Plan B distracts from Plan A. I knew I had to have a plan. My plan was, I'm going to become the best in this business. 200 phone calls a day. My son tired of my back, living and sleeping wherever he could for a year. Let me put this all in perspective for you, if I can. This movie, great. Book, great. Business, great. But the most important thing I've ever done in my life is to have broken the cycle of men who are not there for their children. That is absolutely the most important thing I've ever done in my life or ever will do, and I say that for two reasons. My son, my daughter. Because I broke the cycle here, I'm going to have influence on generations of my offspring that I probably will never meet. I probably won't be here to meet my great-grandchildren. But I will tell you this, a few years ago, I did meet my first grandchild. And let me tell you something. When you've been blessed to live long enough to meet that first grandchild, that changes everything. The first thing that changes is your child becomes obsolete. Every time I see my son without my granddaughter, I look at him like he owed me money. We got nothing to talk about. The other thing that happens when you've been blessed to live long enough to meet that first grandchild, you've got to accept something. You've got to accept that there have been more yesterdays than there will be tomorrows. And when you accept that, you have to accept that there's more that unites us than there could ever be that separates us. So when I stand here and speak of breaking these cycles of child abandonment, child abuse, domestic violence, alcoholism, the name of the cycle doesn't matter. It could be some of the more subtle cycles, the cycles of fear, poverty, illiteracy, the cycle of silence. The name of the cycle doesn't matter because just like me, somebody else in here made a decision a long time ago, and that decision was whatever was an issue, a challenge, or a problem for me is not going to become generational and get passed on to my children. Somebody else in this room made the same decision. The last thing I want to say up here tonight is this. After you sell $400 million worth of tickets to a film, you create something called a franchise. There will be a sequel, and I will see y'all at the movies. Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute blast. God bless. Gracias, Señor. Gracias, amigos. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you all. God bless. Thank you. Gracias. Good night. Thank you.